Welcome back. Welcome back to episode 5 of Not by Chance. I am so excited for today's episode, and yes, I'm excited. It's a weird one to be excited about, but I am recording the episode of my cancer story, that time that I got cancer, which is so wild to even just say out loud, but it happened. I'm here. I'm on the other side, and I guess that's why I'm excited, because I made it. And I'm here to tell the tale. So thank you for listening and for being here, because this is a big moment, the fact that I can actually sit here and record this episode. This episode, I will go through kind of the ins and outs of what I went through. It was a really intense, traumatic, insane, beautiful, wild time. And I want to share the ins and outs of what I went through and what it was like to have cancer. So I'll start by setting up where I was at when I was diagnosed. So if you go back and listen to my previous episodes, you'll notice that I've been detailing the fork in the road moments in my life. The first one was when my mother passed away, and then the second one was when I had PMDD and overcame it. So at the time of being diagnosed, it was 2023. So August 2023 was when I found the lump. And basically life was pretty good at that point. I had just left insurance for good. I'd been in insurance for about, 14 years. And I was leaving to start my own business with my partner, a chili oil business and a food product business, all based around good, clean, quality products. I was just so excited about my future. My health was pretty good. My PMDD, I definitely didn't feel like I had PMDD anymore. My PMS symptoms were still there, but they were not severe anymore. And I felt like I had my whole life ahead of me, and I was really, really excited about life. I was still dealing with some things, like there were still absolutely things going on. Life was not perfect, and I wasn't exactly where I wanted to be, but I was really at peace about the fact that I was on my way towards everything that I wanted. So yeah, it felt pretty good. And life was good, but now when I look back, I'm like, how good was it? So at the time, I felt like life was really good and I was very excited. But now in hindsight, when I look back, and I think everyone does that, I was like, wow, there was a lot that I was still working through and still going through. So when I found the lump, I was away for a weekend with my partner, and we were on the couch watching Love Island, having a wine. And I just put my hand here, just resting it, and felt the lump. And I was like, I sat up and I was like, what the fuck? And I told my partner, and we both freaked out. But because I'd had a cyst here previously, and I'd had it since I was 14, and I'd gotten it checked consistently, and there was never nothing to it. I just kind of told myself it was a cyst and it'll be fine. And I just went about the rest of my life, basically. And from that point until diagnosis was about 6 weeks. So throughout that time, it definitely came into my mind. And I was always planning to go and get it checked, but life was really busy at that point. As I said, I was just finishing up in my job. I was starting a business. I'd already been starting a business. I was doing both at the same time. I was moving in with my partner, so was moving at the time. It was just a really busy time, and I just kept pushing it to the side. Hear me when I say this: if there is something that you need to get checked out medically, go and get it checked out. I am living proof that when you find something early, you will be just fine. So if anything you take away from this episode is go and get things checked out. Don't avoid things because you're scared. I really do get it. I avoided for 6 weeks. I didn't think I was avoiding, but now in hindsight, I'm like, you were avoiding. Don't let it stop you from getting something checked out, because it can actually be the best thing you've ever done by going and getting it checked out. Early detection, as they say. So I went and got it checked out. I went to the doctors. I then did an ultrasound and a biopsy, and then I waited. I went away for the weekend up the coast to my best friends. I had a great weekend, and then Monday rolled around, and Al and I were sitting down for the first time since me leaving insurance and ready to work on our businesses full time. It was very exciting. And we were honestly, that morning, we were planning everything out, mapping everything out, like the next 6 months of our lives, next year. We were like excited little puppy dogs. And then I looked at my phone and I had a missed call, and I called it back, and it was my doctor. And I will never, ever, ever, ever forget what he said, but also the tone of his voice. The minute he spoke, I just knew. And he had a very low tone voice and was just like, "I'm sorry, Alexandra, it's cancer." And he was on loudspeaker with me and my partner. So I was just shaking my head in absolute utter shock. And I just went into shock basically for the first hour. I couldn't really speak properly. I just could not articulate anything. We were with his mum, Al's mum and sister, and they were like, "What the fuck is going on?" Because we were both like, it was a mixture of like not speaking, then crying. And obviously we ended up telling them, and everyone was just like, we were just beside ourselves. It was wild. So from that point, I think I've figured out my trauma response. My trauma response is fight, definitely. I went from obviously shock and just disbelief. And also the hardest thing is you don't know how bad it is because you have to go and do all of the tests, get MRIs, PET scans, all of that. So I had no idea how bad it was. So in my mind, I was just like, "Oh, I'm going to die. Oh, this is bad." And you know what? Not even that I'm going to die. I had some people around me, very close to me, who were going through cancer. To be honest, the biggest thing I was afraid of, it wasn't dying. It was actually just battling away for years on end and being so sick and feeling so helpless. It is, if anyone has gone through it or watched somebody go through cancer, it is heartbreaking to watch. So I was just more afraid of what the next few years of my life would look like than dying, weirdly enough. So I then went into fight mode, which was when I feel out of control, I go into complete control and action mode. For me, that looks like I called everyone in my circle, and I'm really, really, really lucky and blessed. Well, not lucky, I've attracted these people into my life to have some incredible people who dedicate their lives to medicine and to helping people with their health, of all walks of life, from functional medicine to traditional medicine. So I was really, really lucky to have an incredible group of people on dial to be able to call. And basically, I just went into mode of due diligence and action and planning and basically gathering my A team so I can get the fuck through this thing. So I was on the phone for the next couple of hours. I obviously called my surgeon, who was going to be sort of the leader of my traditional medical team. I called my dear friend Natasha, who had stage 4 cancer, but also was my kinesiologist and just my guardian angel, and just everyone else in my circle that I could think of that might be able to help me to understand this and how to overcome it. I am the type of person that will go and find all of the answers myself. I absolutely advocate for myself. And you can go back and listen to other episodes where I explain my beliefs on health, but I do not believe in one particular way. I believe there are numerous ways to explore your health, and it is always about getting to the core and addressing root causes. So for that reason, functional medicine plays a big part in my life. And I also deeply respect traditional medicine as well. So it was very much about gathering all of the information and resources that I could possibly gather to make the best decision. From there, life was honestly so busy. And people said that to me. I remember my surgeon's assistant saying to me, life's going to be really busy now, darling. And I was like, what do you mean busy? Like, and couldn't comprehend that statement of like, life's going to be busy. What? Am I going to be busy with cancer? And you are so busy with cancer. It was the busiest time of my life for the first 2 weeks. So I was diagnosed on September 4th. And from then on for the next 2-3 weeks, pretty much till I started, pretty much the last year of my life, let's be real. But for the first 3 weeks, it was really busy with medical appointments. I had to get MRI scans and PET scans, more biopsies. I went and met with holistic functional doctors. I had Zoom calls with mitochondria experts. I met with cancer coaches. Who else did I meet with? I had to meet with a fertility specialist because I decided to freeze my eggs because of the treatment route that I took. So it was just so busy and overwhelming, and there was so much during that time, and I'm going to go into a little bit more of that time later on, but there was just a lot to sort through, and it was a very heavy, intense period. And so I'm going to read out a journal entry for that time because I think it kind of really encompasses where I was at. So this was from the 19th of September, and I was diagnosed on the 4th of September. Well, I have breast cancer. Lol. It really is pretty funny. I seemingly have everything I want. I finally left insurance literally the day Al and I start working together. We're about to move in together, build our dream life, and boom, September 4th, midday, the call comes in. I'm sorry, but you have breast cancer. I don't think anything in life can prepare you for that moment. Anyway, I don't feel like rehashing it all right now. I think what I truly need and want is myself. My higher self, my little self, my right now self. I don't know if that makes sense, but the person I need the most right now is me. I feel like I have abandoned myself enough throughout my life for others, insecurities, fear, etc. And I crave a deep, deep connection with myself. After all, I really am all I have. In the scary moments, it's me and me. I'm tired of running away from myself, not trusting myself, questioning myself, distracting from myself, not listening to myself. I've got me. And I put a love heart. So that kind of gives you a bit of an insight into where I was at that point. And yeah, I think I was just really overwhelmed by everything and in survival mode. That's the best way to describe it. So what was I diagnosed with? Basically, the diagnosis was triple negative breast cancer, stage 3, grade 3. So grade 3 just means that it was a very aggressive type of cancer. The grade just basically determines how quickly the cells are forming and how they look different to other cells, basically. So I was the most aggressive form of cancer. And then stage 3 meant that it was, there were tumors throughout my breast and then into my lymph nodes, and it had spread to quite a few. I originally thought I had stage 2 breast cancer, but I found out later on throughout the journey that I actually had stage 3, and my surgeon never clarified it. I wonder if she maybe did that on purpose to not freak me out. But yeah, it was actually stage 3. So I was really, 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 really lucky to catch it when I did because it was so aggressive. And I asked my surgeon at the end of all of this, so only a couple months ago, I said, like, what would you have given me if I didn't catch it? And she was like, 18 months. If you did nothing about this, if you didn't find it, if you didn't do treatment, basically she gave me 18 months that I would have lived for. It honestly blows my mind whenever I say that out loud. So it was pretty intense, and we needed to get a move on. So I did end up going with a traditional medical plan. So the prognosis was to make a complete and full recovery from the cancer and to reduce any chances of reoccurrence. And the type of cancer, where it was at, and the treatment options, I actually had a really good chance of this happening. I think it was something like an 86% survival rate. So it was looking quite hopeful. My treatment plan, so as I said, I froze my eggs before I did chemotherapy. I wanted to protect my ovaries. So I went into medically induced menopause. I had to get a needle every month, basically the most freaking painful needle. And I got that every month, and that was basically putting me into medically induced menopause. To my menopause women out there, I see you. I freaking see you. Anyway, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but I froze my eggs. So that was the first 3 weeks. We had to rush that quite quickly. And then it was straight into chemotherapy, which started on the 5th of October. So pretty much an exact month after being diagnosed, I started chemotherapy. So there was a lot going on in my body at this time, hormonally, just on its own, and then in survival mode, all of it. It was pretty wild. So I had 6 months of chemotherapy, then surgery, which was in March, and then 5 weeks of radiotherapy, which was in May, and then a year of immunotherapy, which was running in the back of all of this treatment throughout the past year. If somebody doesn't know what immunotherapy is a treatment that boosts the immune system to recognize and attack cancer cells, offering a cutting-edge approach to treat aggressive cancers like triple-negative breast cancer. And I was on a few different types of chemotherapy throughout that time. I was on something called paclitaxel, something called carboplatin, and then towards the end, for the last 3 months, I was on something, and I'm not even going to attempt to say this, but it was called AC, and it was a very intense form of a very intense form of chemotherapy. Chemotherapy, and I will go into sort of what it was like in a little bit, but for me, because I started out on one that wasn't the most intense one, I kind of felt like I built up to the most intense, and towards the end I was just done. I was so ready to not be on chemotherapy. I'm not going to lie, it was really difficult. It was horrible to go through, but I will say this, it was nowhere near as horrible as I thought it was going to be. I thought I would be throwing up and I just thought I would be throwing up the whole time on chemotherapy, and I didn't. I don't think I threw up one time. I did have some nausea, but I didn't throw up once, and it was still really freaking horrible. I'm not going to sugarcoat any of this in this episode, but it was, I don't know, not as bad as what I thought it was going to be, but still bad. So I basically did that entire plan. So that was from October. And then I finished up treatment completely in September of this year. So pretty much a year in and out, I was cancer-free, which I can't believe that. And to go back to the time of diagnosis, I think the hardest part of the diagnosis stage, there was a week there where Al and I had to, I think it was longer than a week, we had to find out how bad it was. And I had to go and get more biopsies done at that time. And I'm not going to name names of where I was, but I had a really horrible traumatic experience at the place I did the biopsies at. It was a particular hospital. And it really shook Al and I, because they were so unprofessional, and I'm just putting it down to them having a bad day. I've already made like a formal complaint and all of that, but they were talking about how bad it was in front of Al and I. Al almost passed out. I was in so much pain. Like, they were so rough with me. They were doing like multiple biopsies, and they were so rough with me. I have photos of the bruises after. It was horrible. And they just didn't take any care with talking about what they were talking about in front of me. Like, they were not meant to be saying things like, oh yeah, it looks like it's spread there, or, you know, things like that, but they were. So between the time that I got told you have cancer and then figuring out how bad it was probably, I think, like 10 days. So for 10 days, or maybe just a little bit less, Al and I were thinking, it's spread everywhere. It's stage 4, and it's like the worst possible outcome. That was not what the case was. And when we got to my surgeon, we were both just so frazzled and, like, honestly traumatized. We were just so beside ourselves of how bad is this thing. And when she finally told us, don't get me wrong, I was still really, really upset, but I was just relieved that it was the the situation, like I was relieved for my diagnosis, if that makes sense, or my prognosis. So yeah, that was pretty intense and definitely left a mark on us during that time. But I will say one of the best feelings in the world is your doctor saying to you, you are cancer free. Oh, it still makes me emotional. I still remember, and this was in March, so I actually hadn't even finished my full treatment plan yet. But I was able to be declared cancer-free really early on. Obviously, it was still, we were still checking things and all of that. But in March, so just after chemotherapy worked really, really well on me. And I was able to be declared cancer-free in March. I still then had the rest of my treatment plan to go, so surgery and radiotherapy. And I'm going to answer this question because it came up for me of like, why did I still have to do that then? Because you cannot be 100% sure if chemotherapy did get everything, even though on all of the scans it was completely clear. You still cannot be sure. So I still went ahead with the surgery where they cut out where the tumours were and took out a couple of my lymph nodes, and they tested that and the pathology was completely clear as well. I absolutely could have stopped treatment at that point, but I decided at that point I was kind of just exhausted by making decisions, to be completely honest. So I was like, I'm just going to go with the plan. I'm just going to trust my surgeon. I'm going to trust my oncologist. They've done this a million times and they've had great results with my type of cancer and with my situation. So I'm just going to trust and let them lead the way. But basically that is why I continued on doing the full treatment plan, because this was the full treatment plan was the best outcome for the type of cancer I had, for not only the cancer going now, but also reoccurrence later on. So I still went through quite a bit. There was radiotherapy, obviously, surgery, and immunotherapy. To be honest, I didn't really have many side effects from immunotherapy. I had a rash here and there and stuff like that, but I still felt like I had energy and I still felt like I could live my normal life on immunotherapy. Radiotherapy was difficult. Chemotherapy was hard, but radiotherapy was just as difficult. It's weird. Radiotherapy, you don't have as many side effects. I mean, I didn't even really get many skin issues happening, when I know that can be an issue. But I found it difficult because you had to go every single day. So for 5 weeks straight, I had to be up early at the radiotherapy center every single day. I think it was like 7 a.m, some mornings 6 a.m, some 8 a.m, every single day, 5 days a week. And because I was still recovering from chemotherapy and just cancer treatment, I was exhausted. So I was really over radiotherapy. I was really over it by the end. I was ready for that to just be done. I was ready for it all to be done. By the end of my treatment, I really was just like raring to go with life. And I don't mean like, let's do all the things. I don't mean let's charge headfirst into life, but I was just ready to feel myself again. I was ready to feel not at limit of my body, basically. So I'm going to talk about how I viewed the cancer and my mindset during this time, because that is a huge part of this. And I am actually going to read out another journal entry. So this is what I wrote on the 30th of October. So a couple months into chemotherapy, or a month into chemotherapy. How do I feel? Some days really good, excited, in flow, at peace, happy, purposeful. Some days scattered, mixed, all over the place, distracted, uncomfortable, restless. Sometimes I feel unsafe in my body, like I don't know what could happen. Some days I feel settled about the future, and some days I'm in overdrive. I feel like I'm learning to rest for the first time in my life ever, really. However, I'm also churned up some days because of the drugs and what I should be doing. I am in flow feelings way more, and I enjoy that. Thinking about the future depends on how grounded I feel. So I was on steroids for chemotherapy. The steroids don't help me feel grounded. I feel like I need to be doing something, and I have too much energy. I think I need to allow myself to just do what feels best. Stop worrying about the shoulds and connect to what feels right for me. It's so crazy. So much positive has come from cancer. More connection, more love, slow rest, flow, joy, etc. And I am like, am I crazy, or is this just truly making life better? It's hard. So hard, so hard some days, but some days I'm really happy. Anyway, clearly I'm a bit of a freak. I do sometimes think I'm a growth junkie, but I'd rather lean into this chapter than fall into a dark place, so whatever, hey? I'm proud of me and I love me more than ever. I love Alex. I love past Alex. So that just kind of gives you an idea of where my mindset was at. And this is a wild take on cancer and my journey, but this was basically what I decided to view it as. I saw it as an opportunity to make my life better. Why did I get cancer and how can it benefit me? And I did struggle at the beginning with shaming myself about having cancer. I was like, I thought I was healthy. Why do I have cancer? Like, that was definitely going through my mind of, I felt ashamed to have cancer in the beginning. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I did this to myself. There was a lot of blaming and shaming going on in the beginning. Thankfully, I was working with a professional at the time, and she helped me to see that it's not my fault. It's not for me to blame and shame myself. It is for me to take responsibility in my life and accountability, but it's no one's fault. This shit thing just happened. And I really do think that that is just the way life goes sometimes, that these shit things happen, but you choose how you can respond. You choose whether you are going to see it as an opportunity to make your life better, or you can choose to go the complete opposite way. And I really do understand how difficult it is to choose the mindset that I did. I am really aware of the fact that I naturally do have a mind that way. I think it is because of the things that have happened in my life. And it's like, I just refuse to believe that something that is challenging for me is going to ruin my life. I just choose to see these moments as an opportunity to lean in and learn, take the lessons, to grow. And on the other side, I can say now my life is so much better. It truly is. And I say it all the time because it is just the truth. And that, I guess, is the way that I decided to see it. And every single doctor, functional to traditional medicine, all explained to me that mindset was going to be the biggest part of this. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in a sec, but I just chose to have the mindset that I will overcome this. It will be for my benefit in the long run. And I will allow this to be for me. And what it ended up allowing me to do was actually audit and evaluate my entire life. Everything got put on the table, and I reviewed everything from my habits to the way I live, to my friendships, to my relationship, to my everything, my job, everything I was doing in life basically got put on the table, and it was like, right, how are you going to live your life after this? And if you go back and listen to my other episodes, you'll notice that that is a theme. That is how I respond when I'm faced with a challenge. I'm just like, how is this going to help me, and how can I benefit from it? So I say that because it's like, I could have chosen to just be miserable about this and seen this as happening to me, and seen this as something that is going to just rip my life apart. And as you heard from the beginning, I was so excited about my future. Here I was finally leaving insurance. I'm not saying this mindset is easy. And this mindset doesn't mean that you dismiss your emotions. I had so many emotions come up, so many times where I felt like this is not fair. So many moments where I hated what I was going through, but I ultimately held on to the core belief that this is happening for my greater good. So that was my mindset during that time. And it really helped me to get through this, I think, in a way that felt empowering and transformational, rather than feeling like my whole life was just ripped apart. So I'm just going to detail out some of the parts that I struggled with the most, and some parts that I feel like I really loved, the pros and cons to cancer. So the parts that I struggled with the most, it didn't just change my life. it did put a lot of stress onto other people around me. My dad and Al, watching them go through this, and all of my friends and my loved ones, that was really difficult. And it really doesn't just change my life, it changes their entire life. Al has put his entire life essentially on hold to be my carer for the past year. Like, everyone has, in one way or another, their life has also been changed by this. And there's positive to that and negative. So there's that. Having to live life normal, having to live life normally. So Al and I moved in together during that time, and we were living on the northern beaches, and unfortunately the place we were in got mold. And because I was so immune compromised at that time going through chemotherapy, there was just no way I was going to stay in a house with mold and have that also affect the situation. So we quick smart moved up the coast to a beautiful house, the house that I'm recording this in now. And I'm really, really grateful for the fact that we moved here. We were always planning to move here, but it was really difficult to have chemotherapy, to be going through chemotherapy, be in medically induced menopause where you're having insane hot flushes and you just feel so sick in your body. And I was having to go up the coast almost every weekend looking at properties with Al because we both wanted to pick the place together. And yeah, we were exhausted. We were exhausted keeping up with all of the medical appointments happening during that time and then moving up the coast. During this time, my dear friend Natasha actually passed away, and another friend, Gabby, both of them passed away from cancer, from breast cancer. And I mean, it was just horrible to not only lose your friends during that time, but to lose them to something that you're fighting. And it was just honestly such a scary moment of, is that going to be my future as well? And again, not just the death part, because that's scary, but actually the death part really, I don't think it scares me as much as battling away an illness. And, you know, I watched my mother my entire life battling away with her illness. So I think it's a big fear of mine is to struggle and be sick and be at limit of your body. I really do understand and empathize with anyone who goes through that daily. It is so horrible to be limited by your body, and it is why health is one of my number one core values. And I really do, it was really hard to watch them struggling through that, and then also to lose them during this time, because they really were a big support system for me. And it was just really hard to go through to process and grieve their deaths while also going through something really intense. So it was really full on. I ended up in hospital at one point with a virus and quite a few rashes. I ended up with a blood clot in my heart at one point because of my port. That was really scary. They had to rush me around and take my port out, which is what this scar is here. This is where my chemotherapy went. This was where I got my medicine. So yeah, they rushed me around and got that taken out. I was towards the end of chemotherapy at that point, but they were just worried having a blood clot in my heart, what that could do. Thankfully, it all cleared up and I'm still here. Medically induced menopause, as I said, horrible. Menopause in general, I mean, I don't know if it's the same. I've never had, age-induced menopause. I don't know how else to say it, but medically induced menopause was shit, especially in the dead heat of summer. Anyway, I just shout out to women with menopause because it is hard. Medical anxiety, this was a big one for me. So growing up with a mum who was in and out of hospital, I was already pretty afraid of hospitals and just in general, like needles and things like that. So to constantly be going through procedures, going through like blood tests every week, sometimes multiple a week. I mean, I don't hate needles now. They are what they are, but it's not comfortable. Nobody wants to be jabbed. No one wants to be poked. So that wasn't very fun, going through that week on, week out. And also, like, I had quite a few procedures during that time, obviously to put the port in, but then also to take the port out. What else? And yeah, and then as I said, the horrible experiences with the biopsies. Yeah, and there were just moments where I was really scared during that time. It all worked out, and I ended up actually, I think I've now got a very different tolerance to medical procedures, but at the time there was a lot of anxiety when it came to like medical procedures. Feeling limited by my body and how uncomfortable I felt, from weight gain to inflammation to feeling sick. I mean, that just sucks. Body image and feeling ugly, that was really hard for me during times, and I'm going to leave the body image stuff because that's a whole episode on its own. But yeah, I developed rashes, dermatitis. I lost my hair during that time. As I said, I put on weight. I was inflamed. Like, to be at the whim of your body and it not being at its best, it's really difficult. And yeah, it just sucked. Not having the freedom to do what I want, the uncertainty that comes with going through a life-threatening illness. Christmas and New Year's and moments, like that was really hard going through chemotherapy. And I was at that point, like really in the thick of it, halfway through. And it was really hard to enjoy times in my life like Christmas and New Year's that I would normally, like I love Christmas. It's my favorite time of the year, but I just was not myself. So it was really hard to enjoy those moments. And almost sometimes feel like I was missing out. I definitely had some FOMO, especially New Year's Eve. I really wanted to be with my friends and they were all doing different things and I really wanted to be with them, but I was just too sick and I just didn't want to get out of bed. But and Al was working on New Year's, so it was like I just felt really alone but then also didn't want to be with anyone. So you feel weirdly isolated, but you also just don't have the energy to be around other people. So yeah, it can feel really isolating. Cutting my hair and growing it back. Okay, I loved cutting my hair off. I really did, and I thought I looked great with it. I really did, and I felt really good with it, and I loved the cut throughout cancer. But there were times, especially towards the end, and I also was like, I wasn't bothering to go and get it cut properly. I was going to barbers and stuff, so there were times where I really didn't feel like myself. I really didn't feel like I looked like myself, and the hair was part of that. I embrace it as much as I possibly can. I think it looks cute, but I'm so ready to have longer hair, so ready to have a little bob and feel, to have my hair back pretty much and be able to tie it up in a ponytail. At times, treatment did go against my health beliefs. Yeah, that was a big one. I definitely, at times, struggled with doing chemotherapy, radiotherapy, all these things to my body. And I definitely had to change my mindset around that quite a bit, because at first it was very against what I would say my health I would say that my health beliefs were, but over time that has changed and my mind has opened, definitely. And finally, treatment really dragged at the end. And I was so ready to get into life. I just felt like I had a new energy and fire about life. I feel like throughout the entire cancer journey, I really felt like I was in like an incubation period where it really felt like I was so inward. I was so internal during that time. And it was almost like by the end of treatment, I was so ready to birth this new version of myself. As I said, I did like a massive audit of my life, and I was writing so much during this time and thinking about when I am at full health again, what am I going to do with my life? And that excited me so much. So towards the end of treatment, especially where I was starting to feel a little bit better again, or, a little bit more energetic again, but not fully there. I was just like, I just want to be at full health again. So that was difficult for me. Here are some parts that I loved about cancer. So resting guilt-free, watching all my favorite movies and shows. Before cancer, I don't think I knew what resting was, and I mean guilt-free rest. I used to always rest and like just the mind would still be going, and I didn't know what it was to just stop and rest and really be at peace with the moment. I was always, without realizing, berating myself and feeling like I needed to be doing more. And I'm just not like that anymore. If I'm resting, I am resting. And if I am working, and I mean, I struggle with it sometimes, but for the most part, I am very much If I am resting, that is what I'm doing. Not working for the first time ever, and just being so present in my day and feeling at peace, just focused on the day-to-day moments, romanticizing my life, little cups of tea, reading my book. I actually really loved the day-to-day joyful moments, and that was what I just honestly leaned into, were just all of the different things that I love. Cooking, painting, all of that. Of course, I was limited by what I could do because I was so low energy, but I just leaned into really slow, feminine energy. And it was actually the first time in my life I'd ever been in that place, and I loved it. I actually felt really connected to myself in so many ways. And yeah, I loved it. Connection with those around me, my nurses, doctors, people on social media, my friends and I feel like got closer because of this. I really do think that when you go through something like this, it really does show you the people in your life. For better, for worse, absolutely. I was really blessed that most of the people in my life just absolutely stepped up and just took so much care of me, from the people in my medical team, people in my community, just friends of friends. I just had and people on my social media who just were randomly reaching out to me, checking in, or they would respond to my post or anything like that. So I absolutely loved that. And it's the reason I am here right now, which leads me to my next point, which was it helped me to start my content creation journey. And I would not be here recording this podcast, I don't think, I'm sure I would have found a way, but I think it pushed me to getting here quicker. And I'm so grateful for that. It made me so much more of a compassionate and loving person, like way less judgmental and it just made me less judgmental and more compassionate to people. Like, I just really do understand that people are all going through things and on their own journey and at different times in their journey. And everyone, I think, is trying their best. And I really do have more compassion for people now than I did before cancer. I nurtured my hobbies. So during the time I was painting a lot more, I was cooking, writing a lot. So I really tapped into the things that, like, my passions, for no monetary reason. And I'd never really been in that place before where I had so much time that I could actually do that. That's one of my little paintings at the back there. And I absolutely loved it. I loved reading, writing, painting, what else, cooking. Yeah, that was kind of what I leaned into during that time. Deeper connection to my life, to my purpose, my soul, and to my existence. This is absolutely one of my favorite things about the cancer chapter, is I felt so much more connected to life, weirdly, because I think when you are so uncertain about where life is going, you end up having to need like a deep faith in life. And my faith in life and the universe and existence and why I'm here and my purpose and all these things, it just deepened because of the cancer chapter. As I said, the life audit, up-leveling my life in every area, I feel like it just shed so much so quickly, so many limiting beliefs, unhelpful mindsets, habits, insecurities, ways of living. It just really did toss that right out. And it does give you a YOLO mindset. So you really stop giving a fuck about things that just don't matter to you. You really do become unapologetically yourself and just like, I don't care about the things that used to worry me anymore. Like, they just completely go out. I guess you could say it's the perspective that cancer gives you, because you really do just sit back and you're like, this just doesn't matter, and you focus on what does matter. It forced me to love myself at my lowest and connect to my inner child, to love myself deeply, and it has led me to so much more of what I want in life because I let it. That is the pros and cons to cancer. I really do believe that every challenge in life has its good and its bad duality, and I really believe in seeing both sides. I don't believe in dismissing the hard parts of it. I definitely had really, really, really hard times, but there were also some really beautiful and positive times during cancer. So it's important to mention those as well. I'm going to talk about how I coped during this time and what I did. So I did do a lot of strategic escapism. So I actually read a lot of fantasy fiction, lots of movies, social media to a certain point, because that actually could sometimes be the opposite and be quite detrimental, especially because I was doing a lot of research on cancer, so a lot of accounts of people with cancer would pop up, and it really triggered me at times. I really couldn't see other people going through it. So I did have a boundary with social media at times. Connecting and talking to others who had cancer, I know that's contradictory to what I just said, but obviously it did deepen my connection with Natasha and Gabby and people in my life that I felt like were going through the same thing as me, you know, the people in the cancer ward. I actually hadn't written this down, but I'm going to say it. One of my favorite parts of the cancer journey was going into the chemo ward. Some days it was hard because I was exhausted, and also just emotionally, like, you really do feel everyone else's energy, and it's really hard to watch people going through this and suffering. But there was so much positivity at my cancer center where I would do the chemotherapy. My nurses, my doctors, the people there, we had lots of laughs, and there were so many times where I was just like really happy to be there. And yeah, it wasn't merry sunshine the whole time, but I really did embrace those moments. And yeah, I miss my nurses and I miss all the people on the ward, and I had some amazing conversations during that time. So I feel like that was definitely something I loved about it. But going back to how I coped, connection and talking to others who had cancer. Okay, so I've got another thing to read here. So during this time, as I said, I was escaping a lot with fantasy fiction. And during the first bit, I actually read the book Fourth Wing, as you can see here. And I started with that book in the first couple of weeks of my diagnosis. I'd already bought the book. Actually, no, I bought the book after I was diagnosed, and I was going through all of the medical appointments, and I had lots of medical anxiety coming up. I was really scared to go through all of this, and just the general journey of not knowing how, you know, difficult it was going to be, and also not knowing where the cancer was at. But Fourth Wing, honestly, this book, I can't tell you how important it was. And it's so weird to say because it's a fantasy fiction novel, but it honestly just helped me so much through that time, because it helped me to embody a warrior. And what I mean by that, if anyone has read the book, it is basically a fantasy fiction novel about a girl who is becoming a dragon rider, but she has to go through all these different obstacles to overcome. She just has to go through all of these different obstacles and challenges to become a dragon rider. And I just decided to embody this character. I was like, this is just a series of obstacles and a series of challenges, and I am just going to embody a warrior mindset. I'm going to be like those people, Vikings, people out going through crazy things back in the heydays, back thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, and I am just going to turn the fuck up and do this. And that was something that really helped me. So when I would go I had like a really intense biopsy, because they were still trying to really get a good read. I had to do freaking so many biopsies. And the last one was a really intense one. They had to, anyway, I was really scared, especially because of the way they explained it. But I was reading this book at the time, and I was like, this is just an obstacle. This is just an obstacle in order for me to become a dragon rider at the end of this. So I really just embodied that warrior spirit, and Violet, who is the main character, embodying who she is and what she was all about, was actually what really helped me to get through. So I'm going to actually read what I wrote at the start of this book after I finished it. You aren't the same person who opened this book. At the time of reading Fourth Wing, you were diagnosed with breast cancer, 4th of September 2023. This book came at the perfect time as you navigated your way through millions of medical appointments and life-changing decisions. Procedures that not only genuinely hurt, but the psychological pain was just as intense. The book helped you to face your fears. Overcoming each obstacle, this book helped you to face your fears, overcoming each obstacle on your way to becoming a dragon rider. I am so proud of you, and I love you for going through all of that. You got us through, and even though the journey isn't over, we are already on our way to so much more peace, love, joy, and life. Never doubt your abilities to stay connected to that little girl inside of you. Surrender and keep surrendering. Life really is just a game, and you are playing it beautifully and terribly. We all are. Don't forget, this is one lifetime of a million, so don't take this shit so seriously. You have so much beautiful life ahead of you, and this just makes it so much richer. I love you, Dragon Rider Alex. And that was written a few months into chemotherapy. So I was well on my way into everything. But so yeah, embodying somebody who has gone through, and I know it's a fiction novel, but thinking about it, that's what I did, was I embodied somebody going through something really difficult, but seeing it as just this crazy challenge. So Rebecca Yarros, thank you for writing a book that literally changed my life and helped me to get through cancer and chemotherapy and all of the crazy hurdles. And I am now a dragon rider. I can officially say I am a dragon rider. And what else helped me? So I cried and broke down a lot. I really did allow myself to cry and break down and get angry and rage. I had so many moments where I punched pillows, or I would scream. Like Al would just be like, just scream. And I would just scream. Or I would go for a swim when I could, because I couldn't really be in the sun much because of chemotherapy. But I would scream underwater, and I always call it letting out demons. So I would just scream underwater and let out the demons. But yeah, I really did allow myself to just break down and feel everything. And it honestly always helped me to feel my emotions. And the next day I would always wake up a little bit better. So feel your feelings, girls and boys. What else? Outside support is a big one. So obviously my incredible partner Al and friends was so important during this time, and honestly the way that they stepped up, just I will never forget that for the rest of my life. But it also is really important to have your medical team, and then also I think mental health professionals. So I had the beautiful Natalie Savanko, so you can check out her details they're actually on my episode before this, the PMDD episode. Natalia is a kinesiologist and a mind and body practitioner, and she helped me to deal with this time from my mind. She just really helped me during this time to just keep me grounded and keep everything as balanced as possible, which was difficult. And she just helped me to stay grounded in what I was going through and stay present, because a lot of the time there were moments where I was catastrophizing or I was just so done with it. So having someone to really ground me back to earth was really important. I journaled a lot during this time. I wrote a lot. This is my journal from that time, and it's full of lots of things that I was journaling and writing. I just let this time be a really expressive time in my life. I mean, I'm now like that in general, but I just really allowed it to sort of come to the surface. Spirit cards and spirituality in general, I talked a lot to the universe and to my spirit guides whenever I felt like I was at a moment of loss, or felt like, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore. Like there were moments where I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I would always reset. I'd go, if I could, down to the beach or just into my backyard, and I would just talk to the sky and talk to my angel guides, and that always helped me. I planned a lot what I would do when I am back to full health. I was careful with this because I didn't want to always be in the future, but I did allow this time to feel what came up about my life and what I would do once I was healthy and well again. And here I am living out exactly what I was planning. I basically came to the conclusion that I'm just not going to hold back anymore. I'm not going to hold back on my dreams. I felt like there was a lot of fears stopping me from things, and I just decided that when I was of full health again and full energy, I was going to go after it. And I am going after it. So it felt really good to be like planning and writing a lot about what that looks like. What does my life look like after this? Movement when I could really helped. Walks were the best thing. At that time, I did some yoga and Pilates here and there. I stopped weights completely. I just did not have the energy for any of that. So I just focused on walks, movement, as much as I possibly could, focused on reducing inflammation. So whatever that looked like. But I won't lie, there was a lot of lying around and a lot of sleeping and a lot of just being vertical, because that was all I could do at certain points. Eating whatever felt good, both indulgent and nourishing. I tried to remove expectations and pressure on myself, which was hard. I tried to find joy every day and adopted the mindset that it was ultimately happening for me. So I'm coming towards the end. It's been a packed episode, but I put a story up on my Instagram and asked for any questions that anyone might have had about the cancer chapter. So these are the questions that I got. What message do you have for people who give up their healthy years in pursuit of money? I love this question. And I'm just going to say there is nothing wrong with pursuing money, but if you are pursuing it for something you hate or you dislike doing, or it does not get you out of bed in the morning excited, fuck that. Honestly, I just cannot stress enough. If you don't love your life, change it. If you are doing something that makes you miserable just because of money, that to me is such a frustrating existence and for me, it's not what I'm about. And I truly do believe that true abundance, and we attract more in our lives when we're doing something we love. And when it comes from like truly, truly a place of love and joy and passion. So I guess my answer would be, if you are somebody that hates their life right now, but the money is good, you will find a way to make good money doing something you love. You absolutely will. And understanding that is a limiting belief. So yeah, I would just say, do something you love and the money is always going to follow, or you will find a way to make the money follow. I just truly do believe that. The next question was there a moment you thought about not doing the chemo? Yes, absolutely. And I think you can hear throughout this episode and my other podcasts on where I stand when it comes to my health beliefs. I'm very much in the middle of functional and traditional medicine. I have way more respect for traditional medicine now on the other side of chemotherapy. I really do. But I do believe that it is limited in some ways. And I have so much respect for functional and holistic medicine. It has equally the same way that chemotherapy and traditional medicine has saved my life, so has holistic medicine, from my PMDD journey to other conditions that I've had. I really do think that there is a place for both. And when I was faced with the question of which way am I going to do it, basically, am I going to go down the natural holistic route or am I going to go down the traditional route? And both ways have supporting evidence. And I understand for some people that's hard to believe for the holistic natural route. But for me, I chose the way that I did because I deeply needed rest. It had the best outcome in terms of the type of cancer that I did have. And I ultimately chose, what is wild when I say this, the easy way. If I had have gone down the natural route and I explored it, I know all of the steps that were going to be involved, it was going to be an incredibly masculine, intense protocol. Everything would have had to be on point in order for me to have this be beneficial and effective. And for me, where I was at in my life because of the PMDD, I was so burnt out by doing. I was so burnt out by making sure I'm up at the right time, getting sunrise on my eyeballs, grounding, nourishing food, all of the things. I was so exhausted by the shoulds in my life. And by the way, there is nothing wrong with anything that I just said. But for me at that time, I was so burnt out by it. I needed a break. And for me, chemotherapy was going to be that. It was very much going to allow me to not have to take full control of my health, which I had been doing for so long. And I could kind of put my health into my doctors and into medicine's hands and just rest, because I needed rest so badly. And what I did was I actually chose my mindset and my belief when it came to chemotherapy, which was really, really important. Obviously, the person asking this question, they also wrote, because chemotherapy can have negative effects on the body, that's why they're obviously asking this. And I chose my own meaning. And what I mean by that is I chose to see the chemo as medicine and not poison. So whenever people would say stuff like that, I just wouldn't listen. I'd just be like, okay, that's your belief and that's fine. But I chose to see it as medicine. And every time I got chemotherapy, every time it went into my port just here, I was honestly in the state of mind of, okay, this is helping my body, this is medicine, this is healing me. And then when it came to seeing the cancer, I chose to see it as a little cell that lost its way, not something that was trying to kill me. It just got the wrong message. And there's actually a photo of me, I'll post it, where I am holding my boob and I'm holding it lovingly. And that is, Al took that photo and I was literally saying to the cancer, I love you. I love you, and you're just a little cell that lost its way, because that is what cancer is. It is a cell that got the wrong message and it went rogue. It didn't understand what it was doing and it got the wrong message because of multitude of factors, and it got separated. That is what cancer is. And I chose to not see that as something that was attacking me or trying to kill me. It just was this little cell that lost its way and it didn't know what it was doing. So I chose to see, and yeah, it's why even when I, the whole mentality of fuck cancer, and I'm not judging anyone that does have that mentality, because completely get it, especially when you're exhausted and you just don't want a bar of it anymore. There were many times where I said fuck cancer, but I ultimately hold the core belief that cancer wasn't trying to kill me, and that it just was a rogue cell who got the wrong message and lost its way. And I chose to love cancer. I know that sounds so woo-woo and crazy and just very out there, but I just chose to not hate it, not think it was killing me, not think it was attacking me, and not see it in a negative, low vibrational way. I chose to see it in a high vibrational way and coming from a place of love. So to answer that question, that was basically the mindset I adopted. But was there a moment I thought about not doing it? Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad I did, because I am on the other side of this now, having made the decision from a place of seeing all of my options and making that decision. And I feel very at peace with my decision. Next question, how have you dealt with health anxiety post-treatment, reoccurrence, etc.? When I first finished treatment, this was a big one for me. Reoccurrence kept popping up, and it really was a difficult one. I struggled a lot and thought a lot that I struggled a lot with it. And I definitely felt like at times, what if this comes back? And I definitely had a lot of thoughts of, what if this comes back? How is this going to be? And I do think that was because I was still processing everything that I just went through. I don't feel that way now. I feel like I have processed that fear, and it's because I honestly think it's because I have changed my beliefs and changed my mind. Whenever I would have the thought come up, I would simply say to myself, no matter what happens, we will be okay. It's okay that you feel this way. It's okay that you have that fear, but no matter what happens, look what we've just overcome. We're going to be just fine. And it allowed me to feel the emotion and allow it to come up, but let it go. And what I ended up doing was adopting the belief that whatever happens, I will handle it, but also that, and call me delusional for this, but this is how I'm going to live peacefully. So who's the delusional one? But I now just believe that that chapter is done, that happened in my life. And it's not going to happen again. We got it all. And I've just decided to wholeheartedly believe that. And how I have decided that is by doing that every single day. I've repeated that thought over and over and over again. until it has been ingrained in me and created an entirely new pathway. And now the thought in my mind is literally that, yeah, I guess where I stand with it is I'm not really afraid of reoccurrence anymore because I just don't believe it's going to happen. And again, call me delusional, but I just prefer to live that way. And it's not about avoidance because I've allowed myself to feel the fear coming up, but I just truly do believe that that chapter is done. There's something in me that just feels that it's not going to be in my future. And if it is, I will be fine. So yeah, it was a lot of reassurance and a lot of catching those thoughts and then reprogramming those thoughts. And in general, for health anxiety, I completely get it. Even with the PMDD, that was actually a bigger health anxiety for me, was overcoming PMDD, then coming out of the cancer of like, is this going to come back? Because PMDD is horrible and you can go listen to my previous episodes about it. But I was more afraid of that coming back than I was of the cancer, funnily enough. And again, I've just been adopting the mindset of if it happens, we'll deal with it and I'll be okay. But also that chapter is not, that's not where my life is. And on top of that, I have taken full responsibility and accountability in my life. Everything I've changed in my life since not just the cancer, but the PMDD, I've taken full control of what I possibly can, including my mind, but also of my habits, my day-to-day. And I don't mean stressing about this stuff and becoming hypervigilant and extreme. In fact, that's the opposite of what I've done. I've learned to just trust my body and create safety in my body, which does take time. It really does. It's a mindset. And then it's also all of the things that you're doing physically. If anyone struggles with health anxiety in general, or just their health, I really do recommend going and listening to my episode all about the PMDD, even if you don't have PMDD or a hormonal condition, because I talk through all of the changes that I made in my life that has ultimately led me to here right now, which is very strong on my mindset. And I don't have health anxiety. I am very at peace with everything after everything I've been through. And it's because of the things that I did, that I detailed during that episode, that really have helped me to get to where I am and have a very strong, resilient mindset, but also a very at peace mindset. How did positivity play a role in your journey and results? I love this question. And I think I said it earlier in the episode. I honestly can't remember because there's so much in this episode. But every single one of the people in my team told me, from medical to functional medicine, that mindset is the biggest part. And it really is. Thinking and knowing and feeling that you are going to overcome this is the most important part, I feel. Obviously, all of the treatment and everything. But and this is not to shame anyone, but I do want to give an example of this. When I was in the cancer ward, there was this really beautiful girl who was going through the exact same treatment as me and the exact same, she had the exact same cancer, exact same treatment, literally almost like side-by-side stories. And she was 3 times as sick and stressed out, and it was just a really hard time for her. And this is not to shame or compare or anything, but I do think it was the difference in our mindset that really did make it harder for her. And she was the first to admit that when we would talk about this. And what I mean by that is that she really did see that she really did feel like this ruined her life. And I understand how difficult it is to hold a mindset of this is happening for me. I know I keep saying it and it sounds like it comes easy to me, but that doesn't always mean it does. But when you constantly keep viewing your life like that, it will become easier. And I will say this, I do think that it makes such a difference in not only your day-to-day life, but when you're going through something like this, it really will help you to overcome it. And I mean, it's also science, if we really want to go there. Like, if you're feeling at peace, or if you are feeling more in control, your nervous system is going to be more at peace. And the more at peace you are, the less stressed you are. The less stressed you are, the better your recovery is going to be. So there's so many reasons why holding a positive mindset is important. But I also appreciate, like, it's not toxic positivity. It's not about dismissing your feelings. It's not about not having hard moments, but it's about ultimately adopting the core belief that this is happening for you and you're going to lean in and go on that journey. So I really do think that that is really important to the whole process. And I definitely feel like it's what's made a massive difference in why I did have a fairly, I don't know what the word to say is because it's not a positive situation, but why I was able to overcome it and also overcome it in a way where it didn't ruin my life. In fact, it has transformed my life for the better because I've allowed it to see it that way and go that way. So I'm going to wrap this up now because it's been a long enough episode, and I honestly just want to thank you for listening to this story. I know there's a lot in it, and I hope that you got something out of this that really helps your life and that you just enjoyed the story time of it all as well. I enjoy telling stories, and I hope that you enjoyed listening. I just want to say thank you to anyone listening to this, but especially anyone listening to this who was there for me during that chapter. You know who you are, and it's everyone from the people that were closest to me to people on my social media that I'd never spoken to before but reached out to me, or to people who just joined me in the journey and now reach out to me. I can't thank you enough. That was the hardest time of my life, and I honestly don't think that I would be as okay without the support and the messages of "you've got this." And I had my friend's husband who would reach out to me and just send me a message here and there just going, "You've got this," or "Yeah, you're doing well, warrior. You've got this, champ. Keep going." And I just honestly can't tell you how much that kept me going. There were days where I genuinely didn't feel like I could keep going. And getting a message like that, or just someone checking in on me, a loved one, or a hug from Al, or my dad saying throughout the whole thing was "hang tough." And so every time we would end the call, he'd go "hang tough." And it was just a moment of tapping into that warrior spirit. And I just cannot thank everyone around me enough for being there, because you are what helped me get through this. And I am sitting here today in front of you truly because you have helped me to get here. So thank you. Thank you to my medical team. Thank you to everyone. I really don't say this lightly, but I did it. I did it, and I'm here, and I'm cancer free, and I live to tell the tale. So thank you for listening to me, and thank you for being here on my journey. Whew. Okay. Anyway, that's enough out of me. As always, please reach out to me if you are somebody who is going through this right now, or you're a support person or anything. Please DM me, and I don't mean that lightly. Please reach out to me if you need to talk, or if you want to understand anything that I said in this episode any further. I am here for you. I genuinely love to pay it forward when it comes to anything, really. And just know that you've got this. You're on your way to becoming a dragon rider. This is just an obstacle. This is just a challenge for you to overcome, and you will be even better on the other side. You've got this. Hang tough, and thank you for listening.